me talk about the first time I met him. First time I met him, I was managing him for Dennis Coralluzzo.
And I'm sure we're going to have plenty of Dennis Coralluzzo stories eventually, too.
Oh, boy. This was 1991, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I was managing him that night. I just started doing my creator gimmick, which was, well, I dressed in a black gothic type pirate shirt with leather pants, black cowboy boots, a mystical or evil Jim Morrison type of thing. It was something that was still developing. But
it was
the
your hot
gimmick
topic
did work
phase.
well, that night before I asked him before we went to the ring, I said, is there anything in particular? I learned to ask if there's something in particular that they don't want you to do or they want you to do. And he said, well, don't be too serious. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, you know, last week I had a manager. He was yelling, eat him, Kamala, eat him. He says, don't do that. So there was a fine line between seriousness and comedy that he wanted to straddle there. And basically, you're a manager and you're with one of the greatest acts ever in wrestling. So there's really nothing for you to do anyway, except just sit back and watch Kamala, who was truly a genius. And we're going to get into that, about how he developed this character, how he became Kamala, the Ugandan giant. And we're going to tell some great stories. And I want to start off with my favorite story about James. We were on this tour that we're talking about, one of the final stops. We were in Spain. We're staying on the Spanish Riviera. But of course, this is like October. So there's nobody around, but a beautiful hotel nonetheless. And there has been some trouble with money. The Promoters have not been paying the boys on time like they were promised. Well, James was one of them. We're having a meeting in this luxurious lounge in the lobby of the hotel. Just beautiful. I'll never forget it. The promoter, Bob Urey, stood up and said, okay, guys, nothing to worry about. Your money's coming. Your money's going to be here tomorrow. Don't worry about a thing. Everything is taken care of. Okay? Any of you guys have any questions? And James raised his hand. He said, well, all I got to say is that the baby needs shoes, the wife needs shoes, I need shoes. I just want my money.
Oh, that is great.
And oh, it was so good. And so then, you know, some other guys asked questions, and then the promoter said again, anybody else have any questions here? James raised his hand again. He goes, the wife needs shoes. The baby needs shoes. I need shoes. I just want my money.
Oh, my God.
And throughout the years, and it's been like 30-something years, but you could talk to him last month about it, and he would have an exact dollar figure of how much is owed to him. And this is something like, how many? It was 30... It's been a while, roughly 30 years ago. And he would have the exact dollar figure. Let's say it was, well, James, whatever happened to that money that was owed to you? Well, that Bob Urey, he still owes me $4,387. And he would have it. That's not the figure. I'm just saying it for illustration. But, yeah, he was such a funny guy. And such a cool guy to be around. One night on the tour, actually it was the first night on the tour, we're in Passau, Germany, and I'll never forget it. James, which is very unlike him, decided to have a few shots, have a few drinks, and he did. And he liked Hennessy. He loved Hennessy. When he did drink, he drank Hennessy. But he didn't want to drink, and, well, besides the fact, he didn't want to spend the money. He didn't want to spend the money on the tour, you know. I mean, you don't. You know, guys that are on tour, they're there to work. And, you know, a lot of guys, you know, they might party a bit at home, but those same guys won't spend the money on the tour. That's not everybody now, but certain guys like Kamala, like Nikolai Volkov, like Iron Mike Sharp, you know, they're not spending money on the road. They're going to try to spend the least amount as possible. Well, James had a really good time sitting at the bar. Johnny Grunge was there. Who wasn't even working as Johnny Grunge yet. I even forgot, don't even recall what he was wrestling at. Could have been Johnny Valentine Jr., I think. We gave him the name. But Johnny was, you know, 4 sheets to the wind. And on some other extracurricular party favors, he was grabbing the midgets, little Louie, and the Irish leprechaun by the back of the head and throwing him into Kamala's belly. And I will never forget it because every time the midget, every time they would get thrown into him, he would let out this laugh. And his belly would shake like Santa Claus. It was just hilarious. I brought it up to Jeff Lutie, who was the Irish Leprechaun, just recently online. I said, do you remember it? He goes, how could I forget it? It's probably the most memorable story of the tour for him. I mean, it was, and it went on and on. Like, it didn't just happen just once. Like, this went on for 10 minutes. Johnny Grunge was having a ball, just throwing these little guys into Kamala's tummy. It was something to see.